Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the newest edition of AmiSights. I'm Ami Kassar, your host, and I'm so excited off of my TV screen to now have on my computer screen Kevin Nolan, founder and CEO of Nolan Painting here in Philadelphia, and an EO mate of mine, and all-around fascinating guy. We foreign trained together, I think 5 or 6 years ago, and have taken our own journeys in EO. And since then, Kevin, in addition to running an amazing painting company, has a new book out called Organizational Muscle. So without further ado, Kevin, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much, Ami. I really appreciate it. And I remember having lunch with you about 6-7 years, maybe 6 years ago. We were talking about your book, The Growth Dilemma. And I have read the book immediately and have thought about it an awful lot, and would love to refer back to it in this conversation as well. But thanks for giving me an opportunity to talk about my newest book, Organizational Muscle, which is just out and is available on Amazon and Audible in soft cover and hardcover. And I'm looking forward to start telling people about it. So thanks.
Awesome. So let's give the background. People usually write a book for a reason, because they have some experience to share. They don't just some people come up with a book out of thin air, but usually the best ones, from my experience, come with some deep experience and years of experience. So why don't we share with everyone, first of all, what you've done over these years before you wrote this book?
Yeah, so I actually start out talking about the 40 plus years that I've run what is now the largest residential employee-based painting company in the United States. So we run about 150 employees, and that's really contrary in our industry. Most people do some type of subcontractor arrangements, franchise arrangements, but we're just one big happy family at Nolan Painting. And in addition to that, we also started a consulting company that helps other businesses, contractors, and businesses in general implement some of the operating systems that I hope we'll get a chance to discuss here. And then in addition to that, while I was doing all that, I ran a marathon in all 50 states, and then later became an Ironman. But running a marathon in all 50 states kind of weaves through my book as I talk about some of the challenges I faced and experiences that I went through, and how the endurance from running helped me through it. So a lot of tough years in the beginning. I mean, as you know, most businesses go through a lot of those growing pains, and I had a really tough 20 years. But then something happened, and I had what I call my second entrepreneurial seizure. You know, my first entrepreneurial seizure was, I'm gonna paint houses, Dad. That's what I'm gonna do. My second entrepreneurial seizure really was a change in the way I was thinking about everything. And that was about 20 years ago. And from that point, the business started to work. And that's what I talk about in my book, to get businesses to work so that the owner has a quality of life, and the people that work for it have a great quality of life. And the business does great in the community, and it's profitable and growing. And that's what I think we're all trying to achieve in our businesses. So,
yeah, a couple of interesting points. So the first is, I'm smiling when you're talking about the marathons in 50 states, which is amazing. And the Ironman. And I used to quote a lot that building a business is not a sprint, it's a marathon.
Yeah.
But then I actually changed up the quote to say, it's not a sprint, it's like running an Ironman, because couple of points along the way, you're going to throw up, vomit, change terrain, change climate, everything's going to get mixed up on you, and you got to power through it and keep going.
You were there, huh? You were there? You were at my event in July of 2018. All those things happened. Yeah. They also happen in business, right? Business is full. I have a whole chapter in my book called Business is Messy, where I talk about having problems, solving problems, having problems, solving problems. You know, I often say, have problems, eat problems for breakfast, which really means that's what you're in the business of doing, eating problems. That's what you solve. And you don't see them the same way if you're prepared for them.
Kevin, it seems at some point um, you kind of cross the chasm from running your life and your business one way, maybe a chaotic way,
Yeah, absolutely.
into running it a more organized way. And it's interesting. I think I'm going through now at multi-funding crossing that chasm, although I'm not sure. But how did you know you were crossing that chasm? What happened? What was different?
As soon as I started bringing people along, as soon as everybody started to get it and could actually repeat back some of the things that I was saying. So, like, companies form mission statements. And, they seem like so much gobbledygook where they put their values on the wall. And it just seems like, oh, they've been told to do that. That's the right thing to do. Well, yeah, it is. It is the right thing to do. But it's really about living missions, living the mission, getting other people to live the mission, having a vision. In our case, I've always been about having a vision of where we want it to go, and then to have other people say, "Hey, I like that vision. I want to be part of that vision," and then that you're starting to coalesce as an organization. But you really need a lot of that structure and vision and culture that you as the entrepreneur need to constantly work at and put in the business. There's no way to just phone it in. You have to really be working and living and role modeling vision, mission, values constantly. But then people want to join an organization that has a place for them where they can prosper, where they could grow, where there's room for them to they see opportunities for them to move up in the organization, become I don't know, if you wanted to become a salesperson, there's that opportunity in our company. If you wanted to work in HR, there's that opportunity. If you wanted to work in marketing, there's an opportunity. If you just like to work with your hands, there's that opportunity, right? So it's about having that structure. So all of a sudden you start to build structure, and entrepreneurs don't like that. They like to go by the seat of their pants. And then you have to realize that that's not going to be pleasant to work with. Nobody really wants to work for a business where the boss is making it up by the seat of their pants. Right. It just doesn't feel like this guy's got it together. But most people have, as I've put this operating system in the business over the last 20 plus years, organizational muscle, everybody knows how it works. Everybody knows all the rules of the game. They know what we're doing, why we're doing it. We don't do things that don't fit with our mission, and therefore people become very comfortable with the entrepreneur, with me, because I'm not going to do crazy stuff anymore. I'm going to be planful. I'm going to organize, but I'm still entrepreneurial. Entrepreneurial in the sense that I'm still going to recreate opportunities every day out of what is a new landscape and a new environment. That's what entrepreneurs should be doing. They should be focusing on continuous improvement and disrupting their own business before somebody else does.
Kevin, is part of crossing that chasm the reality that not for every business, because some businesses get lucky, but for many businesses that are bootstrapped, those first several years you're fighting cash flow.
Yeah.
And when you're all this stuff is gobbledygook, if you're not sure how you're going to make payroll on Wednesday. And one thing I've learned is that when people are in that stage, living from crisis to crisis and trying to pull out of it and praying for Hail Marys here and Hail Marys there and something to come through here and something to come through there, that's really all they can do. And at some point, they hopefully survive all that, and then they're ready for the next stage. Do you agree with me or not?
Oh, absolutely. We talked, like I said, during 6 or 7 years ago, we talked about, you mentioned in your book, it's a great question. What would happen if someone gave you $1 million, or if you borrowed $1 million, if you had access to that capital? And I argued with you. I said I would put it in the bank, and you said, wouldn't you put it to work? And we debated that. The thing about it is that without any kind of security saved, it just feels terrible to constantly go through what you talked about, which is taking chances, having no backstop, worrying about payroll. I just found that the toll of it for so many years is problematic. So I always wanted to bootstrap, never borrow money, not much anyway, and just grow as slow or as fast as I could based upon what the revenue was coming in. Yeah, I think it's painful, but I mean, that's just the way some businesses are. We are not a super growth business. It's not the type of business with big enough margins. It's very much affected by the economy. It's very much affected by the seasons. We're now in the middle of winter, and our phones, we're doing about 25 or 30% less volume than we do in our busy season. That's a lot of money. 20 or 30% is a big fluctuation month to month, but when you have 150 employees. It was interesting. So right after we had that conversation, we went into COVID, and the government did give me millions of dollars. The government gave us the money. Oh my goodness, that was the craziest times. They gave us PPP. We did really well because of the fact that we had employees, not subcontractors. And therefore, we were rewarded for being an employer, which was interesting. I don't know if I agree with it or not, but it was interesting. And so we actually put the money in the bank, just like I said we would do. And now we live off of it in the terms of we have our own bank. We don't borrow any more money from banks. We borrow money from ourselves. We just bought a vehicle last week. We put about 20% down like we normally did, which would have been out of our own cash flow. And then the other 80% of the vehicle is financed by ourselves. We pay ourselves back a very good rate of 4%, good rate now, but it's amortized over 60 months. And that kind of discipline is really the way you have to grow some businesses, I think. Don't get me wrong, if you are a company that just came up with something that is, I don't know, maybe it's an invention or a concept that you think is going to take off quickly, then obviously if you've got financial backers, that's going to make it go a lot quicker, and maybe even launch it versus not having it launch at all. But if you're going to start a lot of these businesses, like, in the construction industry, or even in the services industry in general, and if you don't have anything that is spectacularly proprietary, then I think you bootstrap. I think you grow slow, and you do the profit first mentality, right? You put away the first 10% of all revenue into an account, and you either call that profit or you call that something else, but profit first, not profit last. And then we take the other 90% and divide it up into 4 or 5 other accounts. And, one of them's a payroll account, obviously, because we got a payroll, and one of them will be a reserve. And then Monday morning, after all that money was divided up from the week before, we're broke again. Our main operating account is broke. We need to go out and get money. We're hungry. We're collecting receivables. We're behaving in a very aggressive manner as a business, trying to reach as much of our goals as we possibly can week to week, and not feeling. But at the end of the day, I do have payroll in one of the other reserve accounts if I needed it, if I couldn't hit it this Friday. That's the only way to live in a business like I have, an endurance business for 40 plus years, is to have some of those financial disciplines.
Totally. And that's one thing. And again, I'm sorry that I haven't read your book. It's on my list of too much stuff going on. No
Yeah, you can
excuse.
listen to it. You can listen to it on Audible. I did the read myself.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah,
Good.
good.
But I find that one of the biggest frustrations for me is the lack of financial discipline of businesses. And I'm not sure I agree with all of profit first, to be honest.
Of course.
I think profit first is likely appropriate at some stage, but not realistic in the early years.
Agreed.
But I don't like it when we teach profit first to our accelerators and EO as an example. I don't think they're necessarily ready for it yet. And it's too complicated. But
yeah, but some type of disciplined savings is necessary.
Correct. And some kind of baseline. If you don't have standardized baseline bookkeeping and accounting systems, and your financial reporting isn't accurate and timely, you have no idea what's going on in your business.
Yeah.
And I see it all the time. I have a friend who, if she wants a financial report on how she's doing in her business, she has to call her accountant, and it's a 2-week delay. And she thinks that's okay.
Well, incidentally, the accountant doesn't even talk the language of business.
That's correct.
They talk the language of taxes.
Correct.
Yeah.
Or I was super frustrated. Interesting talk about operating systems. Sometime last year, I did my hot seat at an EO conference, and somebody was paying $12,000 or $15,000 a month for EOS implementation, but their bookkeeping and accounting were 4 months behind. Their financial reports from last year were all wrong, and their cash flow was all screwed up. And they thought EOS was going to fix everything. Okay, and I'm like, stop everything. Fire your EOS implementer, get a bookkeeper or accounting resources in there and fix your shit.
No question about it. Yeah.
And how can that EOS implementer be helping you with anything if there aren't any baseline financial reports to work off of?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I took too long to do all that, Ami. I took too long to do everything that I did everything that you just said for the first 15 to 20 years. I got my financial information from my accountant. I had a bookkeeper who just put the numbers into the book. We didn't hash data. And yeah, I'm sorry to say that that's a lot of the years that for entrepreneurs, they operate basically in the dark or whatever they can keep in their head, which is really not the way to try to grow a company. At some point, I was really lucky to start to spot people that could help me. And I had a painter working for me that is brilliant. I talk about it in the book. His name is Steve, and he's my CFO now, and he's financially brilliant. I've met a lot of people. He's one of the financially brilliant one. And we talked about money, and it started to fill my weakness. So my weakness is I don't know that much about money. I do now, by the way. I've educated myself. But back then I was thinking, yeah, that's not one of my strong points. Yeah, that's no excuse. An entrepreneur cannot walk away from things they don't understand to pretend they don't exist. You need to get people that are that smart, that can give you information within moments or an hour or two. If I were to ask my CFO for information, within an hour or two, I'd have more than I could possibly process in terms of how many hours we work this month, how many hours we need to hit our goal. So don't get me wrong. I don't want to boggle my mind with that stuff, but we need to sit down once a week and review it for 1 hour a week. That's the type of discipline I talk about in the book, is once a week, have a meeting about the rules of the game that is finance. So you can at least walk out of that meeting with targets and goals that the entrepreneur can understand. Because if you tell me that I need X, Y, and Z by Friday, you give me a couple of days to do it, probably I'm going to get it done. But if I have no idea what I need, I'm going to be stressed out, and I'm going to just wander along aimlessly for years and years. And that's what happens without that type of financial information that you're talking about. Job costing has to be immediately for us. It has to be the minute the job is over, that minute, because if it's a day or two later, the job costing, figure out how much we made on a particular job. It's already too late. There's nothing we can do. There's nothing we can understand about it. It's just a bad job. But we have job costing up to the minute. So we know whether a job is, when it's halfway through the job, we know how it's looking. We have at least some opportunity to maybe bring more resources, or bring more knowledge to the equation or get involved. So yeah, absolutely. Financials are super important. Have to have a meeting once a week about it for 1 hour or less, but it has to be focused on only financials. And in the book, I talk about other things like that, like HR. I waited way too long to get involved in HR, to have a whole HR department. I felt I was pretty good at it myself. And so I would deal with HR issues. And then Homeland Security audits me, and I'm fined $150,000 for minor HR violations of I-9 forms and some employees that had submitted either false or incorrect information. Now we got that down to about a $50,000 fine, but then I built an HR department afterwards. That's kind of like closing the door after the horse is already gone. I really should have done that. Now I have 3 people in HR dedicated. We're about to hire a 4th person, and HR is super important. Once a week, have a meeting about the rules of the game. That is HR, and that keeps us on track. Do the same thing with marketing. Do the same thing with safety. Once a week, have a meeting about marketing. Once a week, have a meeting about safety. Once a week, have a meeting about training. Seems like a lot of meetings. In my operational system, it's about 6 or 7 meetings, which is anywhere from 5 to 6 hours a week, because some of these meetings are even shorter. But you tell me you can't dedicate 6 hours a week to running your business so that it runs really effectively? Any CEO that is not willing to do that needs to hire somebody that will do that to govern them, because that's what CEOs do. They run the business by getting really competent people in each of those areas, and then once a week reviewing those areas and making necessary adjustments and course corrections. Then the business starts to run smooth. Then the business can be a place where people feel safe and want to grow. And that's basically an operating system.
So Kevin, why did you write the book? What was your why?
A couple reasons. There's always more than one. One of the reasons is because I had it on a primary aim for years and years. I don't know. I always thought that would be one of the things I would do. I would run a marathon. I'd write a book. I don't know. At the time, I don't know what I was saying or what I was thinking. Later, as I've come to the point where I'm getting near retirement, I started to think about, the legacy that I was going to leave. My 4 children are in the business. So my 4 children are in the business, but they do not run it. There's a management team above them. That includes my CFO and a president who has been with me for 20 plus years. I started to think about, okay, here are the instructions to run the business. I'm leaving now. And that's actually what I called the book. Here are the instructions. I'm leaving now. And then it turned into what is organizational muscle, a term that we've used internally for a number of years. The routines, the structure, the muscle building, the exercises, all of that has been organizational muscle. Anyway, it seemed unique enough in my industry to want to share it. And then in reality of it is, it's really most all businesses. If you run a service business in particular that hires employees, this book is basically the same operating system that we use will help you grow your business. As I said earlier, I mean, most entrepreneurs really, they're not super duper about making money. They really want to produce something that is special. And so they usually have visions of, like, growing a company that is good for the community, good for the employees, makes a profit, and is growing. And I think my book will help people do that. And we could all use more of those type of businesses and more of those type of leaders. So,
Kevin, if I recall, and I think it's true, when we met a few years ago, in addition to running Nolan Painting, maybe you and a partner or a colleague are also running a consulting company. Tell us about that.
yeah, so we use basically organizational muscle and some of the terms in it, cascading leadership and the hourglass effect. We use some of those concepts to teach people, how to put an operating system in their business so that it repeats itself, right? Like I was saying before, we work with a lot of painting contractors across the United States. I think we have over 100 painting contractors. But in addition to that, we now are growing other aspects of the business and work for lots of service industry businesses that are just looking for that type of operating system. When I read the book Traction, which is a wonderful book, I thought, oh my gosh, I have to write a book, because this is the same type of stuff that we've been doing for the last 10 or 15 years. And so we help people implement a lot of these systems. And to your point, Ari, we do a lot of the finance for them. We help them with an annual budget, an annual business plan. There's nothing super magical about running a business, this back end stuff. It's really just about the entrepreneur just has to embrace a system. And that's why EOS has been doing so well, is because it's a system that if you follow it, that you'll start to have some success predictably. You can predict success. And so best practices, if you do best practices, chances are you'll have success. There's a line that I don't know where I got, but I use it in my book. I tried to attribute it, but it says entrepreneurial success is about behaving properly. So all the entrepreneur has to do is figure out what the right thing is and do it. And if they can do that, they'll grow the kind of business that they dream of.
Why haven't different? Is it better? How's it different?
It's accessible. It's easy. It's understandable. Less complicated. I mean, I think always simpler is better. It's comprehensive. It speaks the language that people might already know or understand. I don't make up jargon for the sake of it. I'm certainly not dumbing it down, but I'm certainly trying to make it accessible to. Right. One of the things in, we have a value system. I talk about values. Most of these business operating systems talk about running it based on values. And one of our values is transparency. And so it's really important for me that the whole company understands the operating system. The whole company knows how it works. That becomes a powerful multiplier when you start to get a whole group, a whole army to understand how it works. Yeah, very powerful. So I think the accessibility probably makes it ideal for business owners, entrepreneurs in my realm, anywhere from 5 to a couple hundred employees.
Okay, ready for my advice to entrepreneurs about business coaches, etc. And you are welcome to agree with me or disagree with me. Ready?
Please.
Don't concentrate on the operating system. Find the coach or the personality that can help you. EOS into itself is not religion. Okay. And EOS with an implementer that you jive with and you work well with and can push you can be amazing. EOS with a crappy implementer that you don't feel a connection with can be awful, as could be scaling up, as could be this, as could be any one of other things. If you're looking for a business coach / operating system, God bless you. That's a good thing to do and an amazing thing to do, but don't just accept one approach as it. Some people will say to me, I need an EOS, or I need a scaling up coach, or I need this. What you really should do is go and have coffee or lunch with 3 or 4 different people with very different perspectives and do a lot of listening. And try find the one that you think is really going to, you can really push you and your organization and grow and listen and go in open-minded. And bonus, if you can find someone who's walked in your shoes and now is doing this almost as a give back, not doing it because they have to, but doing it because they want to, even more amazing. What do you think about all that?
Oh, I certainly couldn't disagree with any of it. Well, I mean, and the one thing you're alluding to that we all talk about in EO is you can't tell an entrepreneur what to do. You can't tell a CEO what to do. They won't accept that type. They won't accept that type of knowledge transfer. The only thing you can do is tell them what you did and how it worked for you.
Correct.
Yeah, and that's how I accept information. So to your point, a coach can't tell you what to do. They can talk about best practices. They could tell you stories they've heard, things that have happened. But ultimately, I always say it because I find it happens to me all the time. When the student is ready to teach her peers, ultimately, when I'm ready to accept information and I'm out actually looking for it, I find it. Because, right. Hey, entrepreneurial success is about behaving properly. Let me find the right answers. So I have been with EO and Vistage and with coaches and with trainers. I've had coaches in running. I've had coaches for the Ironman. And I end up amalgamating my own, right? The entrepreneur accepts all the best practices and looks at them all and then implements the ones that work.
Correct.
Yeah. So agreed there.
Get different perspectives, friends. Don't go down one rabbit hole. Listen.
Yeah.
It's a big deal to find the right coach, and the right operating system can be amazing for you. But get a couple of different perspectives and see who's going to challenge you the most.
Well, and then to continue that, but get an operating system. I mean, when you talked about scaling up, and then there's EOS, and there's Lean, and there's Six Sigma. There's been operating systems for years, but have an operating system. All companies that get to any kind of success levels and size have an operating system. It's their own. It ends up being their own. I mean, Domino's Pizza has an operating system. You got to have a written, communicated, well-articulated, like I said, everybody knows what the operating system is. It's got to be predictable. It's got to be aligned with the mission, vision, and values. But you need an operating system, but it should be your own ultimately. And it can incorporate parts of scaling up. I mean, that's what we use in EO, and there's so many areas of scaling up that absolutely fit in my business, and I use bits of that.
Love it.
Yeah.
Kevin, where do people find the book?
So it's on Amazon. They could also visit orgmuscle.com and sign up for my weekly blog. And there's also links there to buy the book. I have a Spanish version coming out soon. And I'm developing a keynote speech, which I'll be taking on the road. And I really appreciate this opportunity to spread the word on me. I've always appreciated what you do for EO and what you did for me when I read that book a few years ago and incorporated some of the ideas that we talked about then into my current Bank of Nolan. that I talked about earlier. So thanks.
You're inspiring me to write another one.
There you go.
Just there one more time of the day.
You're something else, Ami. Thank you.
Kevin, thank you so much. Have a great time. I think you're out in Utah for a couple of weeks. I love that. That means you've got a good operating system running in your business. And thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom with us.
You bet, Ami. Have a great day and a great life.
Talk to you soon. Thank you so much.